I'm a field geologist. I'm used to working out of doors in Baja California, the Sonoran Desert, high temperatures, difficult, threatening conditions. If people think being stranded on a tropical island is a vacation, they have another thing coming. Looking forward to this cruise.
Yeah, we all are.
Welcome to Inside Southern California. I'm Lynn Harper. Our guest today has safely returned from the island, and we'll meet him as soon as we get back from this short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. This is Inside Southern California, and I'm Lynn Harper. And my guest today, the real professor, Professor Pat Abbott. Hey, Pat.
Good to be here.
Amazing. I turn on my television, and who do I see? My old pal, Pat Abbott. I've known you for a long time, and now you're the real professor on Gilligan's Island.
Well, it's funny, some of the things that happen to you. You know, I'm sitting in my office one day, the phone rings, and there's a casting director in Hollywood asking me to apply for a TV series coming up that I didn't even know about, and obviously I did it, and it was a unique life experience.
Well, I watched you getting on the boat, so what's the deal? You knew these people from before or what?
No, you didn't know anybody at all. In fact, everything was done in secrecy. Everything you never saw. Anybody else applying, anything else, that bit you saw walking onto the boat. First time we saw each other, we had each individually been held in solitary confinement in a hotel room in Cancun for a week prior to that time, taken off in a darkened van individually, and then saw each other for the very first time we walked onto that boat. They wanted to capture the pure emotion or feelings of people seeing each other for the first time.
So what were you thinking then? I mean, you're isolated, you're in a darkened van, all of a sudden you're walking onto this boat. Tell me what was going through your mind.
Great, things are getting started here. Let's see what this adventure is going to be. I'm ready.
So you get this call from a casting director. How did you apply?
Well, they picked my name off of a website known to students called ratemyprofessor.com. Every college instructor in North America is rated by students on this website. They called and asked me to apply from that. Then they said, you've got to make up a 5-minute tape, send it in on VHS. They give you a bunch of questions they want you to answer, and this is your tryout tape. So what I did is I went and got one of our telecommunications seniors, Jake Rose, at San Diego State, and had him film me, sort of going through 3 little skits.
Yep.
And then Jake edited it, put it together, and obviously he did a good job because I got the role.
Well, let's find out how good a job he did, because you know we have some of that audition tape. So we're going to take a look at Pat Abbott's audition tape for Gilligan's Island.
Hi, I'm Pat Abbott, and I would love to be the professor on the real Gilligan's Island. In fact, I've been rehearsing for this role for 33 years as a full-time professor here at San Diego State University. We've come to the shoreline to see what other resources are available for us and also to plan our departure from this island. Just arrived on the island and we're looking for resources, water, food, materials that we can use to build the craft to leave this island.
And that was Pat Abbott auditioning for the real Gilligan's Island. And when I saw that, I knew there was no way that you were not going to get that job. You were amazing. So what happened next?
After that, we went up to Hollywood, and they kept us overnight in a hotel. Then you bring you out and put you on a steel stool, and then come out and ask a whole lot of questions to you. Some of the most outrageous questions I've ever been asked in my life.
Well, like
wanting what you clearly know when they're asking things like that, things that I can't even repeat. They're so outrageous. But
come on, you have to give me one. You can give me something.
This is not an X-rated TV show.
Are you
I can't tell
kidding
you
me?
those questions. No, but your brain processes it. What are they doing? They're pushing your buttons. How do you react under stress? How do you react when something totally unexpected and uncalled for happens to you? So you just treat it with a little bit of humor and keep moving on. And then a little while, in walks Sherwood Schwartz, the originator of Gilligan's Island, 88 years old. We film a little conversation between Sherwood and myself, and you realize, well, I think I passed that part of the interview process.
So when did you find out you actually got it?
Actually, just not really till days before we left. They really like to keep a lot of it in suspense, and then they sort of snatch you out of your hometowns, flew us to Cancun, as I was mentioning, locked you into hotel rooms, literally, individually, which you couldn't set foot out of, and waited until we went to the next phase of the TV show.
So where was the island?
It wasn't an island, actually. As it turns
was
out,
it?
we were in a virgin jungle area in the state of Quintana Roo, well south of Cancun, going down the Mayan Riviera there into an area that really was virgin. I mean, we had 5 different kinds of poisonous snakes crawling through the camp, all kinds of things like this. It was not a tourist or inhabited area, so it was raw and desolate in that sense, even though it wasn't physically an island.
So as far as shelter and food, what did they provide for you?
Well, they gave us the clothes we wore. They took away everything we brought, and they issued what we were going to wear.
What did you bring?
Which for me, I brought a full range of clothes for the tropics and for athletic competition and things. You know, I was My goal was to win every competition that came my way.
Yeah.
I had a pair of brown khaki pants, white shirt, and a pair of boat shoes.
That's
total,
it?
Total clothes.
That they gave you?
You go in the ocean, you come back out, you sun dry, you just wear the same things continuously. Those are your clothes for the event.
Why didn't they just say, we're going to issue you stuff? Why'd they make you schlep all that stuff?
Well, I don't know, but I really, afterwards, looking back at it, I think, frankly, they're not that organized.
Aha!
And any reactions they catch from people, if somebody's upset about this or thrown off by that, those are all emotional kinds of things they can select from to put into their final video they show.
So the stuff we see you doing with the cast members, that's basically, I don't want to call it real, I know it's a reality show, but it wasn't scripted.
Nothing at all was scripted. Every interaction, everything you saw was very, very real. The things that had me most worried was when you sign a contract that no sane person would sign. It has a clause in there saying that they reserve the right to change your spoken words, to substitute words you didn't speak, even change the meaning of your words. And you think, no rational person would sign this, but you realize if you don't sign it, you don't go. So you think, okay, roll the dice. Let's just take a chance.
Speaks a lot for your character there, Professor.
Or one way or the other. But the other thing was, they didn't put anything on there that really misrepresented anybody. In other words, what they showed really were, you know, for the people who looked really, really bad, there was worse things they could have shown. And for the ones that were good, well, there were a lot of really good, fine people there. So it was, you know, as a random sort of selection of items they showed, it was representative.
Well, let's take a look at representative. We have a clip of you and Gilligan's Island. So let's look at the real professor, see how he did.
Yeah, it looks good. Right.
Oh, great. Well, last night a really heavy-duty storm rolled in, and we had to run for refuge. We were lucky to find high ground, get into a cave, spent the night in the cave.
We came back and the camp was in total disarray, so we had a quick cleaning up session.
Well, at least our huts are still standing.
Just there were quite a few branches down, a few wood things around camp, and we just had to do some cleanup.
Now let a man pick that up.
Mrs. Stearns, she gets in this like nervous, like cleaning frenzy. She just never stops.
What happened to our swing set?
Still works, doesn't it?
That's a good spot.
Yeah, that's fairly level.
Excellent.
There was just crap everywhere. And I'm not used to that manual labor stuff. I mean, I really was ready to take a nap.
So does that bring back any happy memories?
Oh, definitely. I didn't really realize on a set that you're there about like 22 hours a day with absolutely nothing to do in the actual actions in a very short amount of time. And the set you see, that was it. We were not allowed to set foot out of that set. So we were in this tiny little area about 22 hours a day with nothing to do except talk to each other. So you really forged some very close friendships and some real bonds.
Well, with who? The other cast members? I mean, how many cast members were there? And what about the camera people and the lights and all that stuff? What was that like?
Well, they divided us into two competing teams. They double cast everything. 2 professors, 2 movie stars, and so forth. And that was the first part of the show, is competing until you get down to just one. I won my competition easily. Actually, everybody on my team won. We were the psychologically low-maintenance team. The, shall we say, high-stress people. The other team had more of the complainers on them. They lost. I had some nice philosophic comments about that never made the final show, but food, they provided us all the calories you needed, but in one form only. We had unlimited numbers of survival biscuits made of 5 components: wheat flour, corn syrup, shortening, coconut, salt. Eat as much as you want, many calories as you want, but that's the whole diet. Wash it down with water in the tropical sun, out in plastic bottles. And so you had survival taken care of. But of course that upset a lot of people in terms of, you know, awful tasting stuff and not a balanced diet and things of that sort. But hey, you don't need that. You're down there for, you know, a month, 2 weeks, a month, depending on the individual.
Sure.
You can get along with almost anything. What's really important is mental attitude, frame of mind.
I think
Don't
you're
let
right.
the little things throw you off. The people who got thrown off, they lost and were gone. Those of us who don't sweat the little things, we won and stayed to the end.
Well, how'd you get along with the crew? How many crew were there? What was the ratio of crew to you guys?
Well, that is interesting. There's 14 of us,
Right.
cast, 180-person crew. They set up a
Yikes.
regular city there. We're out in the middle of nowhere in a virgin jungle. So they have electric generators and electricians. They have carpenters. They build a big bamboo fence. We were not allowed to speak to any of the 180 crew members.
But they were there.
They were there, but we couldn't see them. The only ones we could see would be the camera and sound crews come in among us. But they were instructed not to talk to us, and we're instructed not to talk to them. You're on film 24 hours a day. You cannot speak a word. You're there for a month. There's not a single word you could speak that isn't heard. Glenn and I, our millionaire, one time we decided to test it. We sat down on the sand as far away from any tree or place where a microphone could be,
Yeah.
and we were whispering into each other's ear at the lowest rate to where we could barely hear each other. about a forbidden topic, namely the producers.
Yeah.
They came storming onto the set and said, "Stop that, you can't talk about that." So we just
kidding.
specifically tested to see if you could say anything, and no, you could not say a word without it being picked
Okay,
up.
now I got to know, because you know this question is coming. Everybody wants to know. There are biological functions that have to be taken care of. What did you do, go behind a bush? What happened?
Well, they had an outhouses built out there, and it actually even had some running water in it. You had to ask permission to go use it, though.
Oh.
No, and permission was commonly denied, because if they were setting up something, they didn't want you to see some game they were setting up. So you, I'm a field geologist. I have no
What
problem.
do you care? But what
Just-
about
just-
Rachel Hunter? I mean, look at that gorgeous woman, beautiful gown. What did she change into when she wasn't on camera?
Rachel was given that dress with all the sequins.
Yeah.
That was the one and only thing she was given. She didn't change into anything else.
Didn't
just
that
like
start
I
to
didn't change
smell
up.
after a while? Think about it. You guys' clothes, I mean, after all that time?
No,
Ew.
we had a little shower right there. You could ride a bicycle. One person could ride a bicycle to pump water for somebody else to shower in. Plus, we're right on the Caribbean, so you go into the sea and with permission and
Yeah.
swim a little bit. So no, you're bathing in that sense.
But
and you
did
just-
she have something
you
to
go
bathe in? Sorry, I'm stuck on that, but I'm pretending like if I were Rachel, I had this one gown. Was there something she had under the gown that she could swim around in? We
No.
have to know these things.
No, she would go in that gown.
What?
In the gown with the sequence. But you know, that's one of the interesting things
crazy.
about Rachel. That doesn't bother her at all. She's very low maintenance. You get an image of what is a supermodel, you expect some
That's low
spoiled,
maintenance. That's
egotistical
nuts.
person.
You know,
And no, it doesn't bother her at all. She's very down to earth, things like that don't disturb
well,
her
I
in
guess
the
after being
slightest.
married to Rod Stewart, you know, anything is better than that, I suppose. I don't know.
No, she grew up in the outskirts of Auckland. She's very outdoors oriented. She's very comfortable being
But
outdoors.
swimming in her
nature.
gown, no, I mean, that's a picture that's going to stay in my mind for a long time. So she's in this gown for a month.
Yes.
Okay, wow. That's above and beyond. And you know, I'm thinking, I'm going to show you something that you've seen, I'm sure. I'll show everybody this. This is a full-page ad in USA Today. Here's Professor Pat Abbott, and this is the gown we're talking about with Rachel Hunter
Yes.
that she stayed in for about a month, swam in, etc., that she basically lived in. You lived in these pants and the belt and the shirt that they assigned you. What about the millionaires, though? I mean,
Oh, well, see, now, if you remember the old plot line of the Gilligan's Island series, they had several trunks of clothes with them, so they
Right,
were allowed
right.
to bring them. So they had their full wardrobe. They could change all the time and wear one elegant piece of clothing after another, of their own.
Yeah.
And so they were in a different than the rest of us. The ones who felt the most stress about the costumes, very frankly, were the Mary Anns. They just started feeling like they were showing off their bodies 24
Well,
hours
that's all
a day,
she
and
had.
they never could hide. And
Couldn't
one
you
of them
borrow
in particular
clothes?
was very, very modest, and it was she started spending a lot of time in the hut because she was just no, she was actually embarrassed. She was very uncomfortable, you know, having her body be effectively exposed. all
couldn't
the
she
time.
borrow clothes from
No,
the rich
no,
people?
No, you're not allowed to wear them.
Oh my
You can
gosh.
only wear what's issued.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll take a quick break before we do. So who won? Did you not win? What happened?
We had competitions to get down to a final 7. I
Yeah.
won my competitions very handily. Our whole team did individually. Then they stopped and had a vote off. And then the vote off I was the first one to go. Rachel was the second one to
Because
go.
they were scared of you and scared of her,
Well,
obviously.
see, the millionaire had his wife. They each
yeah.
had a vote. And then they had hired the Mary Ann, who still lives with and works with them as we speak here today. So there was a block of 3 votes.
They hired a Mary Ann. How did they hire her? To do what?
Well, everybody knew it. It was on camera. Nothing is hidden. Who knew that it mattered at the beginning of the show?
What did they hire her for?
Well, he has a variety of companies. and
Oh, so
there's
she was
lots
his
of-
employee.
Yeah, well, they didn't know each other before, but during that time. So you end up with a block of 3 right there, which makes it very, very,
Sure.
very, very loaded. And I guess, I guess there's emails that say it. I and Rachel were each individually considered the biggest threats. So
So you got out. How did they
move
take
out.
you out? How long did you have to say your goodbyes? What happened there?
how long do you have to say your goodbyes? About 1/2 second.
What?
They literally take you by the arm, march you right off the set, put you in a van, lock the doors of the van, have a guard standing there to make sure you don't get out of the van, and you don't even walk back to your hut and collect your toothbrush. You are now, that's what being banished to the other side of the island means.
Well-
You're removed instantly.
This is obviously an amazing experience for you.
Oh, yeah.
But knowing you as I do and your life, this is nothing compared to what you've done and what you're going to be doing. And when we get back from this break, we're going to let you know more about this amazing real professor. So you're watching Inside Southern California. I'm Lynn Harper. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside Southern California. I'm Lynn Harper. And if you want to see some behind-the-scenes pictures, just go to our website, adelphiachannel.com, or my website, lynnharper.com. And on my website, you'll really see behind-the-scenes pictures. I mean, no kidding. Professor Pat Abbott, my guest, I got some behind-the-scenes stuff too, Pat. You're not the only one. Oh, yeah, uh-oh is right. You're a fascinating person, and we'll talk about even more things that make you the famous Professor Pat Abbott, not just the real professor from Gilligan's Island, but you had to start somewhere. And we have some pictures of you, not quite from the beginning, but darn close, and maybe you can take a look at these and tell us what we're looking at. So here are pictures, Pat Abbott as a child, and forward. There you are.
Well, there you see, Woodrow Wilson Junior High, 9th grader, yes, yeah. Native San Diegan.
Yeah, what's this?
Oh, Hoover High School, yeah, cheerleaders, Warren Dean, Bonnie Dean, myself.
You're on the right.
That's me on the right-hand side, yes.
I recognize you. Ooh.
My first car, convertible, still driving a convertible. I have another one here today. Not quite customized like that. My dad on the right, my 3 sons on the left. We're kind of in age there, you know, age distribution, youngest. My 3 sons and myself again.
Okay. And your sons' names?
Craig, Lance, and Darren.
Okay. How cool. Pat and his 3 sons, do they, any of them getting into the geological arts, so to speak?
No, one's a medical doctor, one's an accountant, and one's a waiter. So they're 3 very different kinds of orientations. All very, very close friends. We all vacation together, see each other all the time, and we all enjoy each other's company very much.
Well, I remember that you said earlier, it must be amazing to have the 3 boys and what they must think of you. You know, you were on that website that the kids rate the professors and how highly rated you are. You're known for so much. There was this huge article about you in the paper last year about all the way you dress in class. The purple suit comes to mind. What's behind that thinking, Pat?
Well, you know, as San Diego State University, or universities in general, get more and more students, more often than not, they're getting into these multi-hundred student auditoriums. And you kind of get this disconnect. It's so impersonal being in these large, large auditoria that it just sort of dawned on me that maybe I'll just change the clothes a little bit, wear a different coat, suit, and tie each day of the semester just to add visual interest. You don't talk about it, it's not important per se, but it's just somehow or other to have something that's a little more personal, something that maybe reaches out to some of the people. Of course, probably turns some off as well, but it's just trying to, you know, reach a large audience.
Well, it's not just what you wear. Obviously, that's the outer coating, and that really helps. But it's how you teach and what you do. I have a few stills that I want you to comment on. Let's take a look at those. These are stills of Pat lecturing. He's in the field. Where are you here?
Well, this is we're here at our own beach cliffs. For geology majors, well, now we're going down into a deep borehole looking at an active landslide. But for geology majors, here's where you want to be. They were in Baja California. That's Jorge Ledesma. We take our students out and look at the actual geology outdoors. Here we are out in Anza Borrego Desert State Park, going to Split Mountain Gorge, explaining these catastrophic landslides that happened in the past. But for geology, that's where the real action is outdoors. We are interpreting or explaining Earth history. So you want to get out of the classroom, out of doors, and look at the rocks, learn how to read the stories that are hidden inside those rocks and fossils. You know,
looking at the rocks is one thing. Being lowered into an active landslide, maybe a little bit beyond the pale for some people. What was that like?
Well, the funny thing, when I'm thinking about it, you're going to get lowered 100 feet down where you're going to go through the slide plane of an active landslide. My mind didn't like that at all. I decided to go ahead and do that, but once you get down in there, it was sort of like another world. You kind of forgot it. You're in this tiny little capsule, you have a little area out which you look, and you just get caught up in this little tiny world, and you kind of lose reality of the fact that there's a 100-foot drop beneath you, or you're in this capsule you can't get out of, and your mind just gets caught up with the moment, with what the reason was you went down there.
But then, once having come up, when you teach, you can say to the students, you know what, this is a landslide, this is what causes it, this is what it felt like to be in it, you know? I think that's probably the joy of watching you teach, because when I was on, had my radio show, you were a frequent guest only because it was the way you presented your material that grabbed the audience.
Well, you know, Earth history, you know, these things shape and control our lives in many ways. It's so interesting and exciting, and the more you can get students involved in that, let them feel the excitement, give them some of the abilities so they can read and understand these things. you know, it's a very, very, very exciting thing. It's not a job. It really, it's a life. I mean, I do this, you know, 7 days a week. In a sense, I would never ever retire. What could I do that's more interesting than the kinds of things I'm doing?
Well, you also write, and I have a couple of books here. This one is a gift that you've given to me, and Natural Disasters.
A textbook. Now we're back to general education students, the multi-hundred student auditoria, the kinds of things we live with in California. Earthquakes, landslides, fires, floods, trying to teach that part of the Earth history, how the Earth's active processes, its energy flows, how they impact us as individuals and in communities. And these are useful things to try to connect urban dwellers more with the natural environment we live in.
And also, the rise and fall of San Diego, and I think this is really interesting considering we are now here in San Diego. I've seen people who write about San Diego, the buildings and the boats in the harbor and all, but boy, you've really dug into this. I mean, this is like from the bottom up.
This is basically going through what most people would call the prehistory of San Diego. 150 million years ago, as old as the rocks and fossils are we have, and kind of come up through time and see what San Diego has been at different time frames through the past, and then end up describing why there's a Mount Soledad, why there's a San Diego Bay, why there's Point Loma. In other words, how the landscape we live in came to be.
See, that I find is really interesting because you're looking at something that's beautiful, but if you read this, you see it from a different perspective. And that's what I find really interesting about the way that you are, the way that you communicate, and the way you teach. You've done hundreds, if not thousands, of television and radio interviews, so many that there's no way that I could get them together in a montage and show them. And we're going to take a quick break right now because when we come back, you have a show called Written in Stone. You've done a number of those things, and we have some excerpts from those that we'd like to show. So if you all would stay with us, we're going to take a quick break. My guest is Pat Abbott. I'm Lynn Harper, and you're watching Inside Southern California. We'll be right back.
The landscape of San Diego has been shaped by large-scale processes. Rise and fall of sea level, regional tilting of the land, the shifting and warping caused by movements on faults in the Rose Canyon system. But changes in the landscape are barely perceptible when viewed during any given year. But if we apply a geologic measurement of, say, 1 million years, then the changes become readily apparent, and this is the backbone of geology.
Can you imagine, of all the thousands of hours, I just picked that out because Pat Abbott imparting knowledge, to me, that's kind of what it's like. But now, the last thing you just did, you just got back from the Antarctic. I said, what's new, Pat? Everybody else, oh, I don't know, I just got back from the Antarctic. And I have pictures.
Well, it is a new kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Time's going by, and I think I'd like to see more of the world. So I'm lecturing on cruise ships. These are expedition cruise ships. This is with Abercrombie and Kent. And then we take field trips on land in Antarctica as well. And there's a shot, well, you see some of the shots we see down there. Antarctica just has a different ambiance or feel than any place I've been in the world. We're out there in zodiacs with humpback whales around. There's a leopard seal, the big predator, sort of the Arctic polar bear analog in the Antarctic, the big top predator there.
Wow, look at that.
Icebergs galore, unbelievable sorts of things that we find down there. It's just, like I say, Antarctica, like no other place on Earth. It brings feelings out. Here we are in the middle of a chinstrap penguin colony, 400,000 penguins, all their only access to the sea out this one little narrow glacial meltwater stream. Oh, there the staff carved my likeness out of a watermelon on the ship. It's a very, very interesting a style of travel and really seeing things in a good way. All landings are wet landings. We're in zodiacs. You're off into the cold water, then onto the land, and it's.
Well,
I just
you're
love
off
doing
again,
this.
I know, on a gigantic trip now, and because of the fact that we're out of time, I need several hours more. I'm wondering if after your next trip, you can come back with pictures and video and share that with us. Where are you going?
Next one will be India, Turkey, Egypt, Libya, Crete, Sicily, Italy. And again, geology, history, the history behind things. I'll spend a lot of times at Pompeii, Herculaneum, Vesuvius.
Okay, you're coming back. You're coming
I'd be
back.
happy to.
I want to thank you so much for being here. And I also want to thank all of you for being here, too. And I hope you enjoyed our visit with the real professor, Dr. Pat Abbott. I'm Lynn Harper. This is Inside Southern California. Thanks so much for watching.